All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So it is the night of the release of the Deadlock Protocol, and I have played about 12 hours or so of the new content, which includes a great deal of Protea. So I have a lot to talk about here, obviously, in the next few videos for the next couple of days about the Deadlock Protocol, but I really wanted to talk about Protea first because I think she has a couple of issues that could very easily be ironed out. And that she is like in a pretty solid place as it stands, and could be amazing with just a few changes. So let's talk about Protea just a little bit. First and foremost, the build. Currently, I have one Forma on her, and I'm like pretty happy with where it is. Obviously, on this build, I could include another V polarity so that I could upgrade Augur Message to Constitution to get just slightly more, bang for my buck in terms of the mod slot with the extra 4% ability duration, but that's not going to be a huge factor in the actual power of this build, as most of the heavy lifting in this build is being done by strength with 225% strength, and then a little bit of range at 145, and then a good chunk of duration at 152%. And then, of course, we have a 130% efficiency, which is all she really needs, as she generally doesn't have a lot of energy problems, especially because I think in most cases you're going to be using your weapons instead of your abilities to be dealing damage, at least as it currently stands. So let's talk about this just a little bit before we get out of it. Adaptation is the only defensive mod you're going to need on this Warframe, which surprised me quite a bit, and the reason for this is because your 1 is so good at defending you, which we'll get to in a moment. You can also kind of option select for a redirection if you feel like you need more defensive capabilities. That's what I did while I was leveling, because your 1, of course, is not quite as good before its max rank. But adaptation plus redirection on Protea has been really, really good. And whenever you're fully maxed out and stuff, it seems like it's overkill to have redirection still, so I've stuck with just adaptation. Moving on, let's talk about these abilities real fast, because there's quite a good bit to talk about. We're not going to go in order, because first and foremost, I want to show her 3. Her 3 is literally a dispenser. It is going to dispense health, and then it's going to dispense ammo, and then it's going to dispense energy, and after that, it's going to dispense what it thinks you need. As far as I can tell, it runs on kind of the same system that the Sahasa dogs run on whenever they dig for stuff. So if you need energy, it should drop more energy, as you can see here. And if you need health, it should drop health, and if you need ammo, it should drop ammo, which is really nice, because it means the vast majority of the time this thing is going to be dumping ammo or dumping energy onto the field, which is absolutely fantastic. Very much appreciated for that, because you're always going to get all 3 initially, and then it's going to try and figure out what you want, which I much appreciate. Outside of that, we have grenades. So we have, for 1, just tapping it, which throws out these shrapnel grenades. These stun enemies in the area and also do some slash damage. They're okay. They can do good damage to lower level enemies, but mostly it's going to be used for the stagger at higher levels. And then if you hold this ability, you get the much more useful function, which are the shield grenades. These go out and they lay on the ground. When you run up to them, you grab them and gain a ton of shields, and it's going to start regenerating your shields constantly the whole time it is attached to you. This is really, really good. It also works on companions. As you can see, it's on my Helios. This will also make it so that your shield gate is much wider and gives you a huge berth of invulnerability to be able to recast this if your shields were to be depleted while you have it on, which basically makes you impossible to take down as long as you are casting that ability, which is just fantastic. Your 2 puts out the turret that we've seen. You can put out multiple turrets, and they gain a little bit of time on them as they are shooting enemies. This turret I have some issues with. It really doesn't do that impressive of damage. Like, we're at 223% power strength, and it can sometimes struggle with level 50 enemies, which really doesn't feel like that should be the case. And this ability, in particular to me, after using Protea for quite a while at this point, I would say, really needs to scale with some mods. I don't care if it's pistol mods, I don't care if it's primaries, I don't care if it's shotgun mods. Something it needs to scale with, in order for it to really, have a place, just kind of competitively against other DPS abilities that are available to us. And if it had that, I think this would be a really nice ability. As it stands now, I mostly just cast it whenever I'm just feeling like I should throw a turret up, not for any actually good reason, which is a bit unfortunate. Also, speaking of abilities that I'm not ever casting for any good reason, Whenever you hit 4, it anchors you, and you can run around and go wherever while it's recording for its set amount of time, which is like about 11 seconds or so for me. And then whenever you hit 4, or whenever the time runs out, it will revert you through all of your actions and restore your ammo, health, shields, and energy that you had spent during the time you were in your 4. So the problem with this ability is that Warframe generally isn't a game where you want to use an ability like this proactively, because it's pretty expensive, coming in at 70 energy even with the efficiency on this build. And then while you're in it, there's a big chance you don't want to go back to where you were in Warframe, so you have to hold 4 to cancel it. And then you kind of just wasted a bunch of energy on it, which never feels good. Because we're so often moving forward in Warframe, this 4, I think, just generally is not going to come up. However, I think it's very, very easy to fix. All that this ability really needs to actually be like a solid panic button or kind of get out of jail free card, really, whenever you have the energy for it, is for you to always be recording. Like, always be in recording mode and keeping track of the damage that you've dealt for the purposes of the explosion you can build up during this, because that number below the reticle there builds up damage, and then whenever you rewind, you explode for that amount of damage. Just always be keeping track of like the last whatever amount of time of damage you've been doing, and then at any moment, if you hit 4, just rewind completely. This would be really useful whenever, say, you run up to a corrupted heavy gunner and you get knocked down, and you really don't want to be in that situation, so you can just rewind out of it. That's a perfect use case for an ability like that. Or whenever you just like run into an area and you hit 3, you drop a bunch of 2s or whatever, and like you throw out your 1 and you're like, oh, I have 70 energy left over, let me hit 4 and refund myself all the energy I spent on my other abilities. Like, those are all good and more interesting use cases for a 4th ability that I think meshes better with Warframe in general, kind of where we are right now. So while I think Protea is really close to being an absolutely like amazing Warframe, just a bit of the functionality really just kind of bogs her down as it stands right now, just due to not scaling on her 2, and her 4 just not really meshing with the general flow of Warframe, in my opinion. That being said, having used her for a good chunk of time, her 1 and her 3 really carry all the weight they need to. As long as you have some good weapons to use, her 1's going to keep you alive, it's going to stun enemies, and her 3 is going to give you all the resources you're going to need to keep casting your 1 as much as you want, and also probably to throw your 2 out as much as you want, with all the energy that your 3 can dish out as well. So we are going to jump into the test here. We're going to do level 50 first, just to show that off, and to show the damage of the 2, even at this amount of power strength really isn't that great. And then we are going to show a level 80 test as well. So we put down our stuff like you do. Ancients really nuke the usefulness of the turret. And you can see here, it always procs fire, but even these level 50 bombards, they take a while for it to get through. And even some like regular enemies take multiple shots from this. And because the shots on your 2 are limited, like it can only fire so many times based on the duration you've given it, it's really kind of a weak case for an ability to take this long to take out like level 50 enemies. Like even that enemy took multiple shots from this, and I could have shot that enemy with pretty much any weapon that has, you know, regular old mods in it, and they would have just exploded from the damage of it. So the 2 does really underwhelming damage as it stands right now, in my opinion. That is, of course, going to be exacerbated as the enemy level increases by 30. But the 1 and 3 are going to remain great, and all you really need is your 1 if you're going to want to survive. So it works out pretty well. Like, I mean, I can show the explosion stuff with 4. You can see, like, as I deal damage, I get all that stuff, and then I can rewind and explode to deal, like, some amount of damage and pull enemies to the center, which, like, it's a thing. It's a cool, like, little gimmicky thing to do, but in that situation, I would always just rather be able to explode at any given moment, like run into a group of enemies and explode, and like rewind out of it and be able to deal damage that way after I've done a great deal of damage with my weapons, maybe if I wasn't expecting to or something like that. And it's just, the flow of it just seems off. Spending the energy up front on this ability and not having it just always recording and allowing you to use it just like at a whim to deal some damage or to get out of jail free. Seems like a misstep. Like it's working in the inverted way that it should. But yeah, I think Protea is really close to being like an absolutely like incredible, amazing Warframe. And she's solid right now, like perfectly playable. I had no troubles at all really playing as her over the course of the stream. Like she was like a breeze to level because her 1 is very, very good. And I had a really good time with it, and I think she looks phenomenal. She's a very, very nice looking Warframe. So she has a good bit going for her, and the structure for her 2 and her 4 are most certainly there for those to also be amazing abilities, but I think they just need a few tweaks to really get there. Overall, she's really good. Also, as a bonus, her quest is absolutely phenomenal, and I would highly advise all of you to go and play it. But yeah, that is going to do it for the video today. I have much more to talk about the Deadlock Protocol in the future, but I will see you then tomorrow. Bye, everybody.